Thank you. Okay. Welcome. This public hearing is now open. It's 5:35 p.m. I'm Robin Finnerty from the County of Monroe Industrial Development Agency, and I have been designated by the agency to be the hearing officer to conduct this public hearing. We are here to hold the public hearing on the Pittsford Canalside Properties LLC project. The transcript of this hearing will be reviewed and considered by the agency in determination of this project. Notice of this hearing appeared in the Daily Record on Monday, May 1st, 2023. Pittsford Canalside Properties LLC has requested that the agency assist with a certain project consisting of the construction and equipping at 75 Monroe Avenue in the village and town of Pittsford, New York, of a mixed-use development containing 156 apartment units and 7 three-story buildings, together with a clubhouse and restaurant facility. The proposed financial assistance contemplated by the agency includes New York State and local sales and use tax exemption benefits, partial mortgage recording tax exemption benefits, and partial real property tax abatement. All those in attendance are required to register by signing the sign-in sheet and indicating your desire to make a comment. All those in attendance via Zoom will be called upon and asked to state their name and will be given an opportunity to speak at that time. You will not be permitted to speak unless you have registered. If you have a written comment to submit for the record, you may do so. Written comments may also be delivered to the agency at 50 West Main Street, Rochester, New York, 14614. Please note, the purpose of this hearing is for the agency to hear all persons with views in favor of or opposed to either the location or nature of the facility or the proposed financial assistance being contemplated by the agency. Therefore, the representatives of the agency will not be responding to comments or questions. For those in attendance and interested in making a comment, I will read the names off the sign-in sheet in order in which they appear. Please come to the podium, state your name and address. If you are representing a company, please identify the company. For those of you attending via Zoom and interested in making a comment, I will unmute you and ask you to state your name and address. If you are representing a company, please identify the company. We request that speakers keep comments to 3 minutes. Okay. Now going off the list in order, David Marshall.
Hi, Dave Marshall, here in my capacity as a resident. I live at 67 South Main Street in the village of Pittsford. So I moved into town 5 years ago, and Pittsford is a quaint historic community that really deserves a lot of care and attention to ensure the vibrancy of that character. But also to encourage appropriate development and growth. It was shortly after moving here, I found out about 75 Monroe and the challenges of debt and indebtedness over time that the village had incurred, not necessarily indebtedness, but costs to defend against the project as it was presented many, many years ago. I learned over time the adverse impact of those costs. For example, infrastructure, roads, and projects that weren't able to get done because we were defending essentially a development standard that we held dear, this historical appropriate development. 75 Monroe is a big parcel. It goes from, if you think about it in terms of Shane Place, one end of Shane Place, all the way to the other end of Shane Place. It is single-handedly the biggest development parcel, maybe outside of the Corby Arboretum. And being right on the canal, it's really important for it to look and feel and be a part of the community. And one of the challenges we had on the planning board, I was on the planning board until elected as trustee, was making sure that this project didn't become a separate and unique identity. You think about Orchard Park and you often think about Bill Stadium. You don't think about the community. You don't think about Orchard Park, the village. That's second to this very big football field. And in many respects, I think as we walk into the next year, 2 and 3, the size of this project will be one where we look at it and say, wow, how did that get approved? It doesn't look anything like the rest of the village. It's uniquely different, set aside, and in many respects takes a part of the canal that could otherwise have been developed in a much different way. I know they have approvals to move forward, but as far as the county coming in and supporting the development of this size when the village for so long had tried to fight against it. And only, one of the key reasons for its approval at this point is not because there's an overriding nature from the boards that it should be approved, but rather different elements of it that prevented it from being denied, right? The site plan was approved years ago, so this was an amended site plan. The LWRP consistency determination was denied, but there's 4 lines of code that allowed it to be appealed by the Historic Preservation Board rather than go through the planning board process as typically the LWRP does. The Historic Preservation Board, coupled with the village board and the planning board, did talk about ways to make it more appropriate in comparison to the prior application. But even those comparisons don't create a project that, in my view, is appropriate for the village. Nonetheless, we move forward. I guess in another sense, I've lived throughout this county, whether or not it's in Webster, 4 different locations in center city of Rochester, Cobbs Hill, Cornhill. I've been lots of places. And when I think about what place needs county money to be developed, what place needs the most support for development, it's not an affluent, highly sought after development area in the village of Pittsford. And I'll just conclude with that. Thanks.
Thank you. Before I call the next person, I know a couple people came in late. We have a sign-in sheet that I need everyone to sign in, and if you want to see, you can check it out. And with that, Dave.
McGeough.
Yes, thank you.
My name is Dave McGeough. I live at 28 Washington Ave in Pittsford. And my comments are going to be a little different than most of the comments you're going to hear tonight. I'm absolutely thrilled about this project. I've lived here 20 years in this village, and I've been coming to meetings around this project for a good 15. And when I look around this room, most of the people here, I don't see at the meetings. And I believe most of the feelings they get about the project are from what they read online, from folks like the guy who was just up here before. Because we have a problem here in this village as far as the folks we have elected to official positions taking real personal bias in their professional capacity as members of boards up here. And I'm actually embarrassed by the way we as a village have handled this whole development project through the years. What I've seen when I come to the meetings is a developer who's worked really hard to work with some really difficult people to make a great project happen. And when I hear people talk against the project or against a program through you folks with Comida, is what I really hear is a case of NIMBYism here in the village, which is not in my backyard. The idea of a big apartment complex that folks who may not be able to afford buying a home in this village could still live and yield the benefits of this village. And the short-sightedness of my fellow village residents when they're counting tax money already that hasn't even come in the coffers, while for 15 years, the people who have stonewalled this project, we've not been collecting near anything for all the time that this has been held up. I'm excited for this project for the far sighted, the bigger picture, which is hundreds more people going into this village, spending money at these small businesses and helping these restaurants and individual business owners with a slew of new people. And when they talk about money, they're missing that aspect of it. And I just wanted to really point that out, that you're gonna, I already know looking at the faces, just because I see some of the people that are on the boards. Dave, I mean, I'm looking at these people that The conflicts of interest blow my mind with some of the things they post online that are not factual. And I'm telling you, from someone who's witnessed firsthand, coming to meetings and viewing how this is played out. And yeah, you know what? Does it not have the perfect door color or the lamp style that you want? And you think I'm kidding, but this is the level of detail that we get into in these meetings. And I say, listen, this isn't about your personal interest trumping the overarching rules of the game, if you will. Dave, who was up here before, made it almost seem like these guys went through some different system or against the system to get approvals. They went through every hoop that was put in front of them, they jumped through, and it is approved. So this isn't about whether this should be built or not, in my opinion. Whether they should have some sort of tax breakthrough through you all, to me, you're the pros on whether they deserve that. Me as a resident, get this thing built. It's been too long. I can't wait to see it. It's going to be beautiful. Spare me with, you know, the stadium and this type of thing. It's going to look fantastic with all the other elements that we have here, which is not to make it look like it's an old 1700 village, but to mix old with new. So thank you for listening, and I appreciate your time.
You want my sheet? Okay. Anybody need to sign this stuff? Mike Reynolds.
So one of the arguments that Mark Ford emphasizes is how much they spent on the cleanup. And we've tried to find out how much they really spent after the DEC reimbursement. And the answer tonight is that's not relevant. They won't tell us how much DEC reimbursement they got, which I think then the logical assumption is that it was all reimbursed, that they didn't put a dime into the cleanup. Thank you.
Tom, did you want to speak? You had a question, Mark.
Don't know, I haven't seen this stuff long enough to know what's going on.
Okay. So that's the last person on the sign-in sheet wishing to speak. Is there anyone on Zoom? No, not right now. They're
Call
there.
people's names and please.
Okay. So I'm gonna unmute them and you ask it's Nancy Coates. Yeah, go ahead. Hi, Nancy Coates. Did you wish to make any comments during the public hearing? I asked her to unmute.
Oh, you have to mute yourself.
Yeah.
Excuse me, can we ask questions of you, or, I mean,
You can, we may end up directing some of your questions to the copies of the application that are sitting there, but it is in our discretion whether to answer questions or not.
okay. I do have some questions, but I don't know how to approach you, so.
Why don't, if you want to take a copy and then if you sign the sign-in sheet,
I
it
did.
indicated that
I'm
you're.
Margaret Carabelli.
Do you want me to check you as?
Okay.
And we'd be happy to give folks some time to review material. Hi, yeah.
Hi, I didn't say yes, but I'm gonna say I'm just thinking of time. Lisa Code. I didn't mark yes. I'm the very first one that signed in, I think.
Oh, yes, you did. Sorry.
Sorry. Yes. Hi, I'm Lisa Cove. As our fellow resident and neighbor has just mentioned, he is in the minority in regards to this tax break, tax abatement, tax incentive, whatever you want to call it. I just finished a campaign and now I'm the newly elected trustee along with Dave Marshalls. And we had spent most 6 months walking from door to door and talking up to residents about their concerns about the village. And one major concern was this project, and not so much the project itself. Of course, there is a lot of concern because of the long span that's happened and the cost of litigation of that project, but how it's going to benefit the community. And as you just saw, we just rescinded a letter of support for this project and basically did not want to support this based on the fact of the majority of residents. So that's all I want to make that clear. That's what we're speaking as a elected official speaking for our residents. Thank you.
Is it possible to pick up the extra minute I left behind?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
That's Dave Marshall again. I just left with about a minute. And what I wanted to say in the community in a larger context, and Dave, you make some good points. Right? We need to do better for people to have more apartment opportunities and living opportunities here in the village. We need to do better in creating an environment for a large development to have age in place, affordable housing. These are things that I think members or some members in the community want, right? I think this project in particular, based on the size and the scale and the nature of the approvals, was one where that's the challenge and why I would and more many residents wanted to support it. It could have been a different type of project, still providing those amenities and those benefits that we wanted at a size and scale that could have been more appropriate. I don't want to be, and this is a challenge in the village of Pittsford, we're not exclusionary, right? I think there's a recognition that we do want to create more opportunities for housing and different ways for people to live in the community. And it's just doing it in the right way, in the right appropriate growth. And when Monroe County has funds to extend out for areas that need help, I think one should consider that we probably don't. There's other areas that could certainly use your support more than ours. And this project's going to move forward. And the residents here, generally speaking, don't want a tax abatement connected to it. Thank you.
We got. Oh, wait, hold on.
I'm sorry.
No,
Oh, you
no.
go ahead.
I don't know how much time I have, but just a couple of questions. In terms of the $53 million cost of the project, do you know whether the cleanup was included in that cost? You don't know. Is
The total project. No.
Oh,
What do we
okay.
know?
Well, that would be one of my questions. I think in the budget, it's a $53 million budget. Let me just get there. It says, I would be interested in whether the cleanup is involved in that, and also whether the attorney's fees that are listed at $3 million, if some of those fees were carried over from their multiple litigations of the village. I'd like to know that as well. The other item here is that what is the relationship between the cost of the project and the $25 million assessed value, and where does the assessed value come from?
Okay, so to start your first question on page. So there's an exhibit A at the end of the application. It is. Starts on,
13 at the top.
got 123.
Oh, that's when you got that word. I got it.
So on the second page of that exhibit, it states the amount spent on the brownfield cleanup at 5.2 million.
Okay, I missed that.
No, that's okay.
All right.
That's a separate cost already incurred. 5.2.
So what you're saying is you think that the brownfield cleanup is not included in the $50 million?
I don't believe so.
Okay. That's interesting. So, all right, that's good to know. In terms of the assessed value, how does one typically come up with that calculation? Do you go to the assessor's office and find out, or, I mean, how does that actually work?
So for us, we're required under New York State law to prepare an estimate of cost benefit analysis. So we use the application and the cost disclosed on the application to arrive at an estimated assessed value. It does not bind anyone, not the village in their assessment process of the town, county, none of that. It is just an estimate so that we can get an idea of what the benefits over time would be.
Okay, so that's your calculation.
That is our
The
calculation.
application doesn't include that, and the applicant doesn't include that. You put that in.
The staff prepared
Okay.
that, yes.
So the cleanup is not included. Let me just see what else. Oh, in terms of the jobs, I noticed that, the applicant has said that there'll be about 20 jobs created, most of them in the restaurant, and then the remainder in, property management. I'm wondering, will they get any benefit from the actual construction labor regarding that? And also, would they benefit from any sales tax expense for the actual construction?
So yeah, so the construction, we offer a sales tax exemption, it's 8%. And that is available to the developers to save that 8% through the IDA. And the construction labor, I'm not sure I understand your question, but what I can tell you about construction labor on IDA projects is it's subject to our local labor policy, meaning that any construction labor on site must be from Monroe County or a surrounding region, and the application does identify that region.
Okay. So, all right, so it looks like their application for jobs is based on running the facility when it's done.
Permanent jobs,
Okay.
yes, not the
Permanent jobs.
temporary construction jobs.
Okay. And when does the tax abatement kick in?
It'll commence typically when the facility is complete. We'll work with, assuming there's an approval, which this is just a hearing, there's no approval yet. It would be, we typically work with the developer to commence the abatement when the facility is complete.
Well, I noticed that they're starting out with 3 apartment buildings that they want to put in the pipeline right now. When those are complete, does that kick in then, or does the whole project have to be complete before the tax abatement starts?
That's a factually based determination at the time of the project. So I would imagine the abatement would start once any portion of it is complete, but that's something that's determined at a later date after approval.
You guys determine it? Is that how it works, or?
We complete and file the pilot with the municipality, and it tells them in the upcoming tax year to commence the abatement, depending on when we file it.
Okay. Yes, that's it for now.
Okay,
Thank you.
sure.
You want to come back?
Thank you again, Dave McGill, 28 Washington Ave. So I just wanted to comment on the statement when Lisa was up here and she said that I'm in the minority opinion wise based on, her doing door to door. I just find it interesting because, here we are. We've known well in advance as a community that you were here and that it was open to voice our opinions. The village residents have known for a while now that the village board has submitted a letter in support. So you would think if I'm in such the minority, there'd be a line out the door, people waiting to come in and blast this. But it wasn't until right before this meeting that we even knew that the new village board sent a letter changing their mind. The only thing different in that new village board is Lisa, who spoke here, and Dave, who spoke here. So it sounds to me like it's two people's opinion as opposed to the opinion of the residents. Thank you.
Can I speak?
What's your name?
Sharon Eastman.
Sure.
I'm a little behind on all this stuff. I feel like I wasn't well informed with the current mayor. Meetings were happening, emergency meetings in the middle of the afternoon with little notice. I don't understand how this all even came about. I thought this was going to be luxury housing. And suddenly, who applied to Comida to have a percentage to be low-income housing?
The set aside is a policy of Comida.
It's a policy of Comida?
Yes.
So from the get-go, you were interested in doing a portion of this as not luxury housing?
No, the IDA has a policy that any market rate housing that would be applying for benefits must have a set aside in order to be eligible.
So I'm living in the village for 13 years, and this has been a problem for 13 years. So, and I do believe that Lisa is right in her assessment. I've always been against this. I'm still against this. It was billed as luxury housing, and now suddenly it's, you want a portion not to be luxury housing. The name luxury doesn't even make sense to me, being on the railroad tracks. To me, that's not luxury living. And I really think this should be considered deeply before any decision is made, because most of the residents were unequivocally against this project from the beginning. Thanks. We didn't get notice.
I'm gonna check the Zoom again. Just ask anybody if they're on Zoom and you want to speak to raise their hand.
Okay, if anyone on Zoom would like to make a comment to in the public hearing, if you could raise your hand or,
No, I still hear you.
and then we'll ask to unmute you. Nope. Going once, going twice. Okay. Last call for public comments. Yep. Hi. Can you state your name?
My name is Adele Lester, and I live on number 2 South Main.
Can you just come up here though, so we can hear you? Can you just talk up here though, so we can hear you on the mic, because we have to live stream.
And for everyone in attendance, this is distributed to our board members as well, so that they can hear all the comments. So thank you for coming up.
Okay, so I'm against this. I was against this project for when it was started. And then it was approved, and that's, I can't do anything about that. But when it was originally started, there was no, it was luxury apartments, as Sharon said. And it feels to me like this is kind of like a bait and switch. People approved it on the basis of luxury. And now 10% of that project. And I'm not trying to be, I don't know, only rich people can live here. It's not like that at all. But I think that they were deceitful in not letting us know that this might have been the original plan. Because I was looking up Comida, and I don't even know how it meets the criteria for Comida. I mean, how can he get a tax abatement based on the Comida criteria? I don't know. That was a question that I had. Then I had, they asked a question about if you didn't get assistance by Comida, would you continue with the project? It was written no. So, this just seems to me like, I don't think it's fair for the taxpayers to be subjected to this welfare. That's what I think it is. I think it's welfare by corporations, businesses, or something like that. I don't feel that, I don't know, I just don't feel that it's right. And I think also I wanted to know how much have they already been reimbursed? I mean, aren't we allowed to know that? Because this brownfield stuff, this was supposedly paid for a long time ago. And now this is an ongoing sort of thing that we're gonna have to continually pay for this. We've already paid a ton of money in legal fees stopping this, and we were unsuccessful. And I just feel like, I still feel like it's fair to the people. The ones that are actually gonna have the increased school taxes, the increased Monroe County taxes, the increased Pittsford town taxes, and the increased village taxes. People just don't. And I'll tell you something. And then they have 10% of the project, part of something that was never there originally. It may have been in his eye, in his mind's eye, because he was probably saying, I can always get Comida, but I mean, the criteria doesn't seem to. It doesn't seem to mesh with what Comida is all about. I mean, you're supposedly employing people or like, I don't know, that's just, I'm not, those are just my feelings. That's why I came here tonight and, okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
We had one other person join. So just wanted-
Oh, okay. We're just gonna wait 1 second, check the Zoom one more time.
Last call.
Okay, there were no further comments. I am closing this public hearing at 6:06.